Well, Karen, thank you very much. Thank you to Jacinda, and thank you very much to Lisa, who's an exceptional candidate for us here in Lingiari. She's somebody who has given 16 years of service to the Australian Federal Police, and she's passionate about her community. And Lisa has a real understanding of country and of people here and the circumstances that need to change. So, Lisa, I want to say thank you very much for sticking your hand up and for being a really important part of our team. To Sid and to Mark and to all of the people we've met here today, I want to say thank you very much for the inspiration that you provide, not just to your workforce and the local community here, but to us as well. This is a business that started essentially from scratch. They took a risk, they borrowed a lot of money, and they set up a fencing business, and they're now a major player in the Northern Territory, contracting to regional and remote areas, as Jacinda and Karen pointed out before, employing local Indigenous people. And we want to use that as an example of how we can expand the employment opportunities and how we can help businesses grow and succeed, because it's a big economic multiplier in the economy, but it provides people with a sense of purpose, a sense of pride with the finished product, and the expertise that they've been able to bring together not only saw them pay off that first loan, but now buy this second business and expand their operation into the engineering space. So I think it's a wonderful credit to them, and I hope that they have continued success as well. I was very pleased last night to join with my colleagues and the Chief Minister to have a look at the drone technology being deployed by the Northern Territory Police. We had a briefing, as you know, from the Deputy Commissioner of the Northern Territory Police about the situation, particularly alcohol, fuel, domestic violence, and the break-ins and the general crime situation as it's well known to locals here. They live and breathe it every day. And the drone technology is being deployed to try and track down stolen cars. It helps protecting the safety of police officers who will otherwise be in high-speed pursuits, and it's really, I think, been part of the Whanokiraro government's leadership that we've seen over the last several months, which has led to downward pressure on some of these crime stats. So we want to see a much better outcome for Alice Springs. I'm passionate about making sure that in government we can provide support to Leah and to her government, and if we get our two leases up in Lingiari and Solomon, then we can win government federally, and if we do that we can turn our country around. There are a couple of other issues that I just wanted to comment on quickly, and then I'm happy to take some questions from there. It is deeply disturbing to see the circumstances unfolding in New South Wales, but entirely predictable. I wrote to the Prime Minister in November of 2023 requesting a National Cabinet be convened so that the Prime Minister could provide the leadership that our country needed in the time of a national crisis. The Prime Minister has never responded to that letter. He held a quickly cobbled together National Cabinet meeting by phone. There were no tangible outcomes except that they were going to improve their record-keeping arrangements in relation to the acts of anti-Semitism and the hatred, the racism that we've seen on university campuses, that we've seen in protests, the doxing, the attack on the synagogue through a firebombing, the attack on people's houses and cars. People are now living in fear. And it's been entirely predictable that when the Prime Minister hasn't stood up and been strong and renounced all of this activity over the course of the last 15 months or so, well, of course it's going to escalate. Had this terrorist attack taken place, if the reports are correct around the 40-metre blast zone, this would have been the most significant terrorist attack and loss of life in our country's history. So full marks to the Australian Federal Police and the New South Wales Police and ASIO and Queensland Police and others who have been involved in this joint counter-terrorism investigation. This is a deeply concerning matter, and it hasn't gone away as an issue for our country. We're still seeing overnight attacks on Jewish homes, and when you have Holocaust survivors who have lived in our country since 1945 in peace are now saying that they feel unsafe in our country, it is a national disgrace. And the Prime Minister has presided over this deteriorating situation, and I want to make sure that we can do everything we can. The Parliament comes back next week. The Coalition has put on the table mandatory sentencing for people who are convicted of terrorist-related offences. The Prime Minister should introduce that legislation and pass the legislation before the Parliament rises. And we will support that because we want to send an absolute message of deterrence to these people who would think that committing an act of this atrocious nature is somehow acceptable in our country. It is not, it never will be, and under a government I lead, I want to make sure that we send a very clear message to all of those who might be thinking about these sorts of activities. We will not tolerate it, and under a coalition government, there will be zero tolerance for any act of racism and anti-Semitism, and I want to make that very clear. Finally, as we know in WA, the Prime Minister's been playing this two-card trick, which hasn't worked. And the fact is that the Prime Minister, I think, is being deceitful with the population in WA. WA and its economy thrives on mining and agriculture. And we now find out that there's a secret deal that's been signed between the Greens and the Labor Party about introducing a bill which will stop mining in its tracks in WA, which would destroy the WA economy, not to mention the national economy. So if the Prime Minister is trying to stitch up a secret deal before the election, he should release that detail so that people know about it before they vote at the election. We have to get our country back on track. We need more mining. We need more support for the agricultural sector. We need to make sure that we've got an economy that can compete in a very competitive world. And at the moment, the Labor Party is smashing the economy through its energy policy and through its economic settings, and we will do everything we can to implement our plan to get Australia back on track and to help families who are really struggling under this government.